Whoever starts their day by thinking, hey, I'm going to have an affair today, doesn't happen. But how many people do you know, or maybe this has been you, that find themselves asking one day, how did this affair ever happen to our marriage?
Welcome to the Only You Forever podcast. If you want to build a thriving, passionate marriage, we've got the research, the truth, and the answers you've been looking for. And now, here are your hosts, Caleb and Verlinda Simone Gendel.
Hey everybody, this is episode number 20.
Woohoo, for episode number 20.
All right. Hey, we want to shoot out a big thank you to Jason Gentarola, the gentleman in the Philippines that helps produce our podcast episodes. He takes the sound, cleans it up, mixes all the parts together. Jason, thank you so much. You've been doing a great job. And we know we've had a number of compliments from our listeners about the audio quality, and we really appreciate what you do to help us out there.
And we really like working with you.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Yeah, Jason's great to work with. And also to our listeners, Verlinda, over 4,000 downloads on our podcast. Mm-hmm. Most podcasts, apparently 80 or 90%, don't make it past episode number 8. So we're thankful for you guys for listening and downloading.
Yeah, and giving us a little bit of feedback now and then.
Yeah, we do appreciate your encouragement. That's the fuel that keeps our tanks full, helps us to keep going.
So what are we talking about today?
We're going to be talking about affair-proofing your marriage, because we don't want any of our listeners to ever have an affair.
No.
Because they are brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our prayer for this episode then is to make someone who is listening just like suck air and go, oh boy, it's time to make an about turn because I'm headed for a serious marital train wreck.
Yeah.
If you're on that track, turn around.
Yep. Have a good listen here and better pull the e-brake.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just remembered too, Verlinda, before we were recording that, a phone call that I had with a guy whose affair just got blown out into the public and uncovered and everything. Mm-hmm. And I just remember like the profound sorrow and regret. Like he was just sobbing on the phone. He was suicidal. He was talking about the shame of how his children were going to see him and the loss of his, respect in his community and the impact on his wife, his family. And and like he was seriously considering taking his own life. Like it was so severe.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he probably didn't get there in a day either.
He probably didn't think about that when he initiated all that.
No.
With his affair partner.
So I think, one thing we need to remember is that verse in 1 Corinthians, it says, therefore, let him who thinks he stands take heed that he doesn't fall. Mm-hmm. So we can't sit here, saying, oh, we have a great marriage, we're fine. Mm-hmm. No, we need to continually strengthen and maintain our marriage and protect ourselves from that.
As long as we're human, we're here on this planet, we're vulnerable to doing things that are wrong.
Yeah.
To sin, right?
Yeah.
So one thing we can do, though, to help protect ourselves is to educate ourselves about what our vulnerabilities, the risk factors are in our lives.
Okay.
And then we want to give our listeners 3 ways to affair-proof their marriage. Now, again, the word proof, we're just using that loosely. You can't proof anything in life, but I think we can make it highly resistant.
We can do our part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to get nerdy for a minute here with some research from Sapellis, Fisher, and Aaron. They did in 2010. This is one of those meta-analyses. So they studied scores of studies.
Right.
Not just their own study.
Yeah.
And so it was a great sort of assimilation of data about affairs and risk areas. There's 4 risk factors or areas of risk factors that I want to bring out for the first one is with regards to relationship satisfaction. So that's your satisfaction with your marriage that you're in.
Okay.
Number 1 there was boredom. That's a risk factor. Yeah. Lack of emotional support, the frequency and quality of sex, the amount of felt love. And then if either of the spouses has low agreeableness, meaning that they're generally disagreeable and hard to get along with.
Yeah.
That's a risk factor. And low conscientiousness, which means like I never, eat breakfast in bed or do those little things that think of you above me.
Oh, okay.
Open the door for you.
Okay. So those will all affect our satisfaction with our relationship.
Right. And then when that's decreasing, we've got a vulnerability issue.
Okay.
And then mental health or psychological issues. Now, whereas the first part, those are all in our control. Sometimes these are biochemical issues that we don't have control over. So we're not being judgmental on any of these. But if you experience some of these, we want you to be aware of that it is a risk factor. And maybe you can strengthen your marriage in other areas to help offset this. Or at least the awareness.
Or get help in these areas.
If they're treatable, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the first one is just any general psychopathology mental health issue is a vulnerability. Depression in particular
Okay.
is a big one. Narcissism is another one. And a narcissistic person is a person who sees themselves as larger than life and others as an extension of them. So that type of person might see themselves as very attractive and other people as people to be used to satisfy that need to confirm their attractiveness.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right? Excessive alcohol consumption is a risk factor.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. And another one that's very sad is childhood sexual abuse. That's a risk factor for affairs as well. Role modeling by father. So a generational infidelity pattern. If grandpa had affairs, if dad had affairs, I'm at risk for affairs. Yep.
And more so by the father than the mother?
Yes.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. Because it normalizes that as part of your upbringing.
Right. Okay.
And maybe
this is normal.
Maybe your dad, there was some shame associated, or maybe your mom was upset, and maybe there was a divorce, but maybe too, dad sort of in subtle ways communicated that, he was the man, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then that becomes a value that's sort of inherent in your upbringing. So that's one to guard against. Attachment anxiety is another one. Now, I don't want to get into the whole attachment thing, but these are spouses who are uncertain of the availability of their spouse. Mm-hmm. Okay. And they cope with that by seeking reassurance from and clinging to their spouse. Now, if I go for the clinging and reassurance because I'm not sure with you and you aren't giving that back, maybe I'll find someone else that will
give it.
Reinforce that for me.
Oh, okay.
So that's an issue. And then another type of attachment problem is attachment avoidance. And those are spouses who doubt the availability of their spouse, and they cope by avoiding behaviors that promote intimacy. So because I'm not sure you're available in the marriage, I avoid deepening intimacy with you.
Okay.
And so, an affair in some ways, the intimacy of an affair is a much lower threshold than the intimacy that can really happen in a marriage when you go deep and you really know each other.
Yeah.
Right? So you can see how that person would turn outside the marriage possibly as well.
Okay.
So just watch those mental health or psychological issues. And then the third one is self-perception, the third domain. And if I perceive myself to be more socially desirable, like more attractive to others in the social realm, that leads to, there's more probability of infidelity there.
Wow.
Yeah. Women versus men for a moment here, Verlinda. Women are more motivated by the need for intimacy and self-esteem, and they're more motivated towards affairs by dissatisfaction with their marriage.
So if I'm dissatisfied with my marriage and I'm feeling that need for intimacy that I'm not getting in my marriage, I'm going to go outside.
Yeah. And I think the reason why they flag women on this one particularly is, well, it's because of the numbers. But if you think about the gender difference, if a husband and a wife are both equally dissatisfied with their marriage, she's at greater risk for infidelity than he is.
Wow.
So you got to take your dissatisfaction seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then men, on the other hand, overall, they just have a stronger desire to engage in sexual infidelity.
Okay. Why is that?
Because our world socializes men that, they're stallions.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's self-perception. Last area for Linda is social factors. And the social factors are, number one, lack of religiosity. So if you're a less religious person and you don't perceive there to be some higher power with objective moral laws that you are bound or at least obliged to obey, you're more at risk of an affair. If you have higher income, you're more at risk of an affair because of the opportunity afforded to you. Like being wealthy makes you more socially desirable.
Oh, okay.
But being wealthy too, if it gets to your head, can also give you a sense of entitlement that I can have whatever I want.
Okay.
Yeah. And then any work, employment that involves touching clients, discussing personal concerns with colleagues or clients, or working alone for periods of time with coworkers, all of those types of occupations have a higher rate of affairs than normal.
So
now,
like EMTs or police or something that are just driving in a car for hours.
Yeah. Massage therapists.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, we're not saying that all, massage therapists and police officers are having affairs.
No,
and
not
we're
at
not
all.
condemning those occupations at all, but we're saying there are higher rates in those occupations. So if that's you be aware.
Yeah.
Yeah, be aware.
You need your guard up more so.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's probably a good segue to our next section, which is how to, we want to give our listeners 3 ways to affair-proof their marriages. So what can they really do to to build these walls around their marriage and protect themselves, make themselves safer?
Yeah. So I would say like the first way here, or idea number 1, is keep deepening your love. Invest in your marriage.
Yeah. Really sort of building that attachment bond between husband and wife.
Yeah.
And a great way to do that for Linda, I picked up from Sue Johnson. She is really the lady that invented emotionally focused couples therapy, which is one of the most effective couples therapies currently available, is this, and I'm going to quote here. So she says in a marriage, you want to have the marriage become a source of security, protection, and contact comfort for your spouse.
So what's contact comfort?
Contact comfort is a place where I go for reassurance, for comfort, for someone who can hold me.
Okay.
Both emotionally and physically. Mm-hmm. And then she says that we need to learn to assist each other in difficult emotional circumstances and in developing positive and a potent sense of self.
Wow.
So that when we see the marriage as an opportunity to enrich my spouse, and this is the idea, what I love about this is it resonates so well with the biblical model of Christ in the church, where the husband is called to nourish and to cherish his wife. That becomes, you see the marriage as a crucible for personal, emotional, spiritual growth.
Yeah.
Right?
But even self-growth.
Yeah, that's inevitable.
Yeah.
But because you're other-oriented, you're going to grow yourself.
Yeah.
So I really like her definition and how that resonates with the truth of Scripture. So deepening that love. But I think, Verlin, too, there's other ways that we can invest in our marriage.
Yeah, I think we could show love and consideration. Mm-hmm. Like something you do for me. I usually go through the routine of getting the girls ready for bed. But sometimes when I'm exhausted, you'll go and you'll do that. Right. And we'll both say goodnight.
That's showing consideration.
But that's showing consideration and that love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the next one is sharing power. And I'm just so thankful that you share some of the power in the marriage with me occasionally.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
That was me trying to spin myself off as the henpecked husband.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Okay. But no, this is actually more the other way around. The husband sharing power and not just being sort of the authoritarian leader.
Mm-hmm. We talked about this, didn't we? In
episode number 3, yeah.
Receiving influence.
Yeah, you can get that at onlyyouforever.com/3. How to receive influence. That's really a good one for the husbands to share power with their wives. Mm-hmm. And then learning to be there emotionally for each other. That's another good one for husbands too, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're more like think it through in your head and here's the solution.
Yeah. And that's exactly what you need, though. You need a solution.
Right. Yeah. Of course. And I think we should be sexy with each other. Like flirt, date. Mm-hmm. Don't just, do the dishes together too, but can have some fun.
Doing dishes is really sexy. Yeah. That's good. Okay. What else for lunch? So that's the first way. Keep deepening your love.
Yeah. And I think we need to own our stuff. Like own your own stuff.
Like face those mental health issues. Are you seeking treatment? Are you getting help if they're available?
Yeah, all those mental health or psychological issues that we talked about above.
Yep.
Know that, this puts my marriage at risk, so I'm going to do everything I can to guard it.
Yeah.
And if that means going and getting outside help, I'm going to do it. I'm going to face those past hurts and abuses, and I'm going to seek healing.
Yep. 100%. And then another one too, the whole 1 Corinthians 7 thing is about not withholding our bodies sexually from each other too, right? So it's okay, I think, to be a low desire spouse if that's all there is to it. But if you pull back from the physical intimacy because of those deeper issues, you don't want to let your history or your brokenness or even your sense of victimization become your dominant message.
Yeah, face those fears.
Yeah, you don't want that to get in the way of your sexuality and your sexual intimacy in the marriage, because that is so important, especially if you hold to the whole Christian faith belief, which holds marriage as sacred, and that's the only place that sex should happen.
Yeah.
You want to honor that, right?
Yeah.
But more than just honoring that, I think you want to make that the place where the best sex happens.
Right. Encourage it.
And that takes some growth. That's, you have to deal with your stuff if you're going to face all of that.
Yeah.
So.
And kind of changing topics here a little bit, but as we talked about before, watch for entitlement from positions of power in your marriage.
Yeah.
If you've got a boss who's maybe making advances.
Right.
You need to just be very aware of that and put up the barriers. And because if they come with a sense of entitlement, it's a lot harder to.
If someone else does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to really have those good boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I just totally confuse you there?
No, that's good. I thought we were coming from our entitlement, but you're talking about somebody else's entitlement towards you.
Yeah.
That they can have access to your sexuality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even your emotions.
Yeah. Like, don't come cry on my shoulder if you're a different gender. Here's my wife. She's really good to talk to, or talk to us together.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Got to watch those situations where we make ourselves emotionally vulnerable and
Yeah.
Good. So that was the second one, for learning to own your own stuff. Third one, be intentional about your well-being, your personal well-being.
So what are you talking about? Like eating well and exercising and
Yeah, I think healthy,
stimulating your mind.
Overall healthy, but even like, as dads, one of the things we often struggle with is we need to be a spiritual leader. And we can talk about it and pay lip service to it, but actually taking that seriously in our lives and thinking about what I need to do on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, how I plan my week, think about my week, how I think about the time I spend with my family to be that spiritual leader. This is addressing that religiosity piece, right?
Okay, yeah.
So I can build resistance to evil influences by being that spiritual godly father.
Okay.
That I'm called to be, or husband.
Or husband, yeah.
And husband, I should say.
Yeah.
And or husband, depending where you're at in life. I guess you may not have kids yet.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. And then I think for Linda too, that's the spiritual side, but in all of our lives, let's make good choices about finances.
Yeah.
And about our fitness.
Yeah.
And even about the food we eat. All that stuff affects how you think, how you feel, how you act.
Yeah. And if you get yourself in a huge amount of debt, you've got that added stress. You're disagreeable with each other. Mm-hmm. You can go elsewhere and there's someone who isn't aware of all that. Mm-hmm. But no, if we make good choices, we decrease all that stress.
Yep.
And we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So being intentional about our own well-being. And then another area in there is just the whole friendships thing.
Like same-sex friendship?
Yeah, same-sex friendship. So as a guy, I have good guy friends that support me. They value marriage as well. They respect mine. And I think that's important for girls because, or for women, because there's so much of the stereotype of the woman goes and belly aches with her girlfriends about her husband, right? No. Well, that's enough for that crap.
Yeah.
That's not healthy for a marriage. If your husband has issues or there's things that you're unhappy with, talk to him about it.
Right.
First.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the fact that you just use the word crap.
In public? Mm-hmm. Do you want to get Jason to put a beep on there? Or?
Oh, dear. Okay, so what were those 3 things?
Okay, so first of all, Verlinda, we had...
Keep deepening your love.
Yep. And then own your own stuff.
Yeah.
And then be intentional about your well-being. 3 ways to affair-proof your marriage.
Okay.
Hopefully that's given our listeners some food for thought. And we're going to skip our Q&A section today because of time. But if you do have questions from this episode, let us know. We'll pick them up the next time we do a Q&A on the podcast.
Yeah. So just a little preview here. Next week, we're going to air an interview we did with Tyler Ward. He was a really great guy to talk to. I found it really interesting.
Who is Tyler Ward?
He is the author of the book Marriage Rebranded.
Yes.
But what I think is the most cool is he's just a normal guy who said, no, I need to take my marriage seriously and just thought about it a little differently. Anyways, it's really fascinating, but I won't give you the whole thing.
Wrote a great book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had a chance to talk to him, which is awesome. That is our first interview podcast. And
hopefully it worked.
Yeah. We'll see how that all comes out. But we'll also have a video recording of that online on our website. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We did it over Skype and it was kind of, we already did this, even though it's coming next week.
Yeah.
So
it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all for today's episode. You can get the full show notes at onlyyouforever.com/20. And remember,
I wanted to say that part.
All right, you say it.
All right. Remember, we're here to help build thriving, passionate marriages. So send us your marriage questions in to questions@onlyyouforever.com.
Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the onlyyouforever.com podcast. Please help us reach and influence a wider audience by rating and reviewing our podcast at onlyyouforever.com/love. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
When I breathe out, my little screen thing fogs up.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, as soon as you're done wheezing into that mic, I'll start. Ready?
Yep. It's all yours.
Whoever starts their day by thinking, that wasn't right.
There's no empathy there at all.
I'm a heartless wretch. Okay, let me try that again. Whoever starts their day by thinking, hey, I'm going to have an affair today. Doesn't happen. But how many people do you know, or maybe this has been you, that find themselves asking one day, how did this affair ever happen to our marriage? So I need more like empathy in that question at the end.
It wasn't bad.
Do you think I can do better?
Probably not.
That was so encouraging. All right.
I don't know. You can listen to it again if you want. Or try it again. Obviously, you're not.
All right. Let me see if I can kick it up a notch.
Try and cry at the end.
Try and cry?
Yeah.